The last time Sal and I were in a video together, we toured the German pen factories of Pelikan, Lamy, and Kaweco. Today, although we aren't traveling abroad, we are giving you a special tour of the Pilot Vanishing Point fountain pen. Besides reviewing the details and finer qualities of the world's most renowned retractable fountain pen, Sal is going to show us the family collection of exotic limited edition Vanishing Points. But first, let's talk about what makes the Pilot Vanishing Point such a special pen worthy of any pen collection. So Sal, what makes you think that the Vanishing Point is?
So as most of you know, I am not a fountain pen user, and Tom always makes fun of that for me. I'm a more of a ballpoint and rollerball guy, as much as I have access to all these pens. I think I've said that before, though. But that has an exception, which is the Vanishing Point, for the simple point that it's easy. I'm a very ergonomical and practical person, and this is probably the most practical fountain pen that I have found to have. So that henceforth, that's the primary reason. And second of all the different styles that are available in terms of color, and then the yearly specials that they have and whatnot. So that's really what attracts me to it.
Well, you said that you were mostly into ballpoints and rollerballs, and that major point is like convenience.
It's all about convenience, and to be totally blunt and honest, I'm very sloppy. I drop them all the time. I break them, and I lose them. So for that matter, it's a lot more convenient for me to have either a practical fountain pen or a nice-looking rollerball and ballpoint that I know if I drop, I will not have any repercussions.
Well, I think you would be pretty upset if you dropped the Vanishing Point.
True, but chances are it'll probably be retracted. Which has happened actually a lot. That's
definitely, I think, an appeal for a lot of people. And the Vanishing Point actually was introduced at a weird time when Pilot, being that it's a company that's been in business since the early 1900s, I think 1919 is when they started, that at that point, the ballpoint started to take over. Like Bureau started to manufacture the Bic, and it was becoming cheaper and more democratized. And you had the fountain pen, which was long the standard of writing by hand in any case, besides that and the pencil, of course, but that was kind of being replaced by this just very easy to use click action mechanism that required no filling, just it was a disposable,
easy use,
easy to use sort of thing. So this Vanishing Point, being that it was introduced in 1966 or 65, I think it was.
Probably, 65.
Yeah, that this fed that need for convenience with Pilot's urge to keep the tradition of the fountain pen going.
Correct. One other thing that came to mind as you were speaking, the year 1919 happens to come around a lot in the fountain pen world, and I was very curious about that, as to why there were so many fountain pen companies founded in 1919. And then it struck me, it was the year after the First World War. Mm-hmm. So a lot of companies that had been around prior to that, since the 1800s, probably got destroyed or reinvented and reformed. So there's a plethora of companies in Europe that always say established 1919, including Aurora, I think Nettuno, and a bunch of other ones. And I got a little curious about that, so it was a fun little tidbit.
So you're saying about possibly dropping or losing a pen, as precious as the Vanishing Point is, but in terms of a fine writing instrument, we've seen and experienced pens that are much, much higher in cost, but yet are significantly less complicated, less ingenuity, less quality than a Vanishing Point for a higher cost. And sure. I think for what it's worth, the Pilot Vanishing Point, being that the MSRP is under $200 for an 18-karat gold nib, is like one of the best values that you could get, and usually is often talked about when it comes to upgrading to a gold nib. If we're going from like a steel nib, we've always been used to, like, let's say writing with TWSBIs or Pilot Metropolitan, Kaweco Sport, and then you're like, well, I want to try something that's going to be a bit more premium in quality with a gold nib, Vanishing Point always comes up in that conversation.
It reminds me of, because of the fact that it has such minute moving parts rather, and some quirky things built in, it is probably the closest thing to a fine watch. If you take one apart and take a look at the inside, I think the only successful Vanishing Point or retractable has always been Japanese. Can you think of any other than the Dialogue?
There's really not that many
much later.
Not that many retractable nib fountain pens at all, that are out there, and just really like Platinum just recently introduced that Kuridas
also
pen,
Japanese,
also Japanese, and then you had Lamy, and then I think Stipula had a retractable nib as well, but none have done so far as well as the Vanishing Point has.
So
for
these
sure.
seem to be like the standard that everybody seems to follow or copy when it comes time to having an everyday writer that you can actually carry around in your pocket. So that's really what attracts me to it. And then I've had people in my family. I usually have one in the house just laying around, and anytime someone sees one, they want a pen because they know we're in the business, and this is the one they ask for. So
nice. So speaking of the Dialogue CC and also the Platinum Kuridas, I actually had a couple of them available to look at in a size comparison. So while I just take them out, we're going to do a little bit of a flyover and give you the specs on the Pilot Vanishing Point and compare it against the Dialogue CC and the Platinum Kuridas. The Vanishing Point fills by proprietary cartridge or converter, both of which are included with the purchase of the pen. The Pelikan 40 converter has a reputation for being a tricky converter to use, especially for Vanishing Point fountain pens. Follow this quick tip video in the card above to find out how to get the best fill. And under the hood of this high-performance writing instrument is the semi-hooded 18-karat gold nib manufactured by Pilot Japan. The proprietary nib is part of a removable unit that can be easily replaced. The Pilot Vanishing Point nib unit is available in extra fine, medium, broad, or 1.0 millimeter stub. I have one of every nib size inked up, from extra fine to 1.0 millimeter broad, so we could do some writing samples.
Nice.
Starting out with the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo at extra fine. So give that a whirl, and we'll take a look.
Extra fine.
How that is
now,
there.
The funny thing is, I grew up writing with the fountain pen in high school, throughout my high school and middle school years.
And that was in India, right?
That was in India. Yet, I started writing with a rollerball ballpoint. Certainly smooth, but not my favorite nib size.
Yeah, it's very thin. It's very much for like technical. I think for people who have very small, concentrated handwriting. If you want to fit a semester's worth of notes on an index card, it's probably the best nib size for that purpose. And also too is that if you can't control the type of paper that you have available to you, the finest of the fine point being extra fine is probably the most recommended because it wouldn't necessarily bleed through papers with the excess amount of ink flow. So I would say especially with the amount of, this is definitely not like in Sailor or Platinum territory in terms of feedback, but it is definitely the most noticeable feedback out of all of the nib sizes. And you'll see when we go upward in nib size that these 18 karat gold nibs are very, very smooth. But the extra fine definitely has that feel, and you could kind of even hear it too. You could hear a bit of that feedback on the page, but you can't get any finer than this. And this actually is So I measured it with a pair of calipers that the extra fine is a 0.25 millimeter line, just normal.
That's fine, yeah.
Line. That is very,
That's
very
fine.
Yeah, it's super, super fine. And it's also a little bit on the drier side too. So you're not going to get like a whole lot of impressive ink colorations, shading, or sheen with an extra fine nib.
Well, Pilot's also known for their we call them the throwaways, the little G2s and the little fine liners that go as low as 0.1, I believe, right?
Yeah, they get like the hyperfine, Pilot G-Tech Cs and stuff. Those are some really fine needlepoint type pens. But in terms of fountain pens, really they don't get, for Pilot at least, they don't get. Yeah, this is as fine as you're going to pretty much get. So then we have the fine point, which I think it's got a really nice. The fine point's got a really nice sweet spot where it definitely gets rid of all of that feedback that you felt with the extra fine and gives you a little bit more of an ink flow as well. So, but while maintaining a pretty fine line.
Now this is a gold-plated, yet the feeling of the pen is almost the same. It's much less feedback.
Well, it's got they make the Vanishing Point gold nibs with the rhodium finishing or the regular gold, but that doesn't affect the performance at all on them at all. It's a really nice one. And then so the fine point actually rates at 0.4 millimeters. So it does jump quite significantly, 0.15 millimeters to the next line thickness, but definitely from a tactile standpoint, far smoother than the extra fine nib is. But then once you get to the medium, then you're going to be like, oh, now this is a smooth ride, because the medium point has got a really nice smooth nib. It also starts to show, I feel, more of the true color of the ink in a more saturated way, has definitely got a good flow on it. So we're using Konpeki for all of these writing samples, and with the fine and extra fine you get a lighter hue of Konpeki, and you get some of the shading I think with the fine, but then with the medium you get that rich, bold saturation of Konpeki with the medium.
And it's very quiet.
Yeah.
I've noticed another thing, which tell me if you agree with me. The black plated nibs tend to be a lot firmer and quieter than either the white gold or gold plated. I'm not sure if it's the plating or the powder coating that has that effect.
I haven't really noticed the difference. I would say that they are very similar.
They're about the same.
Yeah, because we also have a stub nib too with the black.
That being said, that's not just for Pilot. I've noticed that across the board, or maybe it's just something in my head because of the fact that I do see, an extra plating or extra color on top of it. Mm-hmm. It's not metal. It doesn't feel like a metal to metal contact or metal to paper contact, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so it feels like a little bit glossier.
It feels a little glossier, a little smoother to me. And I've noticed that across the board.
So that medium point comes in at 0.55 millimeters, so another increase of 1.5 or 0.15 millimeters. Starting to get thick on there, and then we have the broad, which then is even thicker than the medium, and shows even more. I feel like not only does it show the saturation of the color, but now you get more of the shading because there's more ink flow, and on this Rhodia paper, which is good quality fountain pen friendly paper, it can handle such an ink flow so that you can see the shading or the sheen on an ink that would have sheening properties. So this is more ideal, I think, for people who are fast writers, people who definitely have access to fountain pen friendly papers and want to see the quality of their ink, want a quick draw type writing experience that just flows and is very, very smooth. So you're going to see that, I think, with the broad nib, is that it's got a smoother feel than the medium and definitely responds very quick to any gesture. So you could definitely use this for signatures, very quick note taking, but just keeping in mind too that when you're note taking or writing, that you need to be conscientious about the paper that you're using, because this is going to definitely lay down quite a bit of ink. Now, did you notice at all, I kind of felt, which I'm not feeling it right now, but I thought with the broad, especially since it's so smooth, it kind of had a little bit of a squeak about it, or a little
It does
feel. Yeah,
and that's kind of what I was referring to with the noise factor, with the feedback and noise. The medium nib that we were using, if you compare the two right now, you'll notice a little bit of more of a quieter experience. But then again, that could be a nib to nib experience. You know, you could fine tune any nib to do anything you want it to do.
Yeah, so it could be like smoothed out just a little bit, right out of the box. But out of the box, the broad nib comes in at 0.6 millimeters, and then we're going to take then the jump to the stub nib, which is Pilot's only stub nib in this collection, which is a 1.0. They call it a 1.0 because that's, I think, the size of the tip on here. But this actually writes at a 0.82 on the downstroke, and then a 0.4 on the cross stroke. So that's your stub nib. Is typically the vertical stroke is going to be thicker than the horizontal stroke. In that case, it creates line variation automatically without having to put any pressure on the nib, which is neat if you're writing cursive, or even if you're writing in print. It does add a little bit more calligraphic flair to your handwriting. Because that variation just kind of looks a little bit cooler, looks interesting, looks like, you know, calligrapher came and started writing, you know, words that, you know, you were like, oh, I wrote that? It's like, oh, well, Tom all of a sudden added a whole bunch of flair to his handwriting. The thing, tell me if you agree with me, the thing about this stub is that since it has basically a 2-to-1 line thickness ratio, so the vertical is twice as thick as the horizontal, and usually stubs are rounded a little bit more for comfort so that the nib is smoother, and I kind of feel that this one, it sacrificed it a little bit so that you kind of have more feedback on it, especially on the cross stroke, or like if you're going, you know, so it does, while it does feel smooth, I think on the downstroke, but like overall just writing in cursive kind of feels has a little bit more feedback than typical stub. You know,
obviously with the design of this nib, it's not a very large nib, so flex is always, you know, you're not expecting a nib of this caliber or this size to have as much flex. Secondly, you know, just the nature of this pen, it's an everyday writer in your pocket. I don't think a lot of people that will be doing calligraphy or any kind of fancy writing will go to a Vanishing Point as their go-to pen, right? Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think too is that it's a pen of convenience.
It is.
So like when it comes to slowing down and being more focused on writing with a stub nib, it may not be for everybody, because especially it may not be best suited for that purpose, because it's more about like that quick draw, just needing to write something down and not have to really worry about like how pretty it looks. It just needs to be written down.
It's impressive enough that they have so many sizes available for such a fine. By fine, I mean a small, nib unit.
Yeah, and it's only specifically for this line.
Exactly.
This does not work with...
Because usually for pens, you know, especially pens that are specifically designed for a specific use, they'll have a fine and medium, as you know, like Parker, Waterman don't even have broads anymore.
Yeah.
That they discontinued those about 12 years ago.
Yeah, you would need to send it away to the after-sales service center to get anything besides a fine or a medium. So.
But it's pretty impressive that you can go anywhere from an extra fine all the way up to a stub for such a small pen, right?
And what's great is that if you bought, let's say, one of them to start with, and then you bought one of the limited editions, you have the ability to purchase the nibs separately, so that you could then swap out. I could put the medium in the extra fine, or the extra fine in the, so you could put them in whatever chassis that you prefer.
Which I think
to
a lot of
write
people
with.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also not that like big and noticeable of a nib. I mean, yeah, of course, if you're as detail driven as persnickety as some pen people can be, like you would see like a gold nib on a rhodium trimmed pen and be like, oh, I can't do that. But I mean, you could put a black nib in with the rhodium trim, or a gold nib in with the black trim, and switch it out, whatever.
I think people have done that. I particularly remember once when somebody had called me and asked for, I forgot if it was for the black pen, or was it a white or a silver pen that they asked for a black nib for, just to create that contrast. A lot of people do that, and it's a cool little thing to be able to do quite easily without actually even taking the nib unit apart, which some people are nervous about because they feel like they'll misalign it or something.
Yeah, it's dead simple to be able to replace the nib and put it into a different pen.
It's super modular and
you don't have to worry about like aligning the feed or like screwing it in a certain way, or it's very, very simple to be able to swap nibs.
Yep.
So as you can see with all the various Pilot Vanishing Points I inked for this writing demonstration, the pen is available in a wide array of styles that range from classic to colorful and then to contemporary. But now at this time of shooting this video, Pilot is dealing with some pretty nasty supply issues, right, Sal? It's just like we've been sitting on back orders for a few months of a lot of different styles. Even just to get this set of pens available to show you guys came with some sacrifice, and actually had the fine point. I had to give up one of the other pens, just for the demonstration, because I had to give it up because somebody else had already purchased it. So it's like there's really not a lot of inventory available, but we are working with Pilot on it, and hopefully things will start to balance out this year and we'll start to see a full range of pens. They are planning on continuing with all the styles that we have up on the website, so they haven't said that we're discontinuing so many different SKUs. So we do hope to get everything replenished, and we do hope to add to it with a new Vanishing Point 2022 limited edition. So one of the Vanishing Points that doesn't quite look like the others is the Pilot Vanishing Point Decimo. This is the purple lacquer with silver accents. It has about 1.5 millimeters in diameter thinner of a size, and also 36% lighter than the standard Vanishing Point. Now, despite its smaller size, the Decimo still uses the same retraction mechanism and still uses the same 18 karat gold replacement nib unit that you could swap out on any of the Vanishing Points. So it's really built as a pen that would be more suitable for people who like more slender pens. And also too is that it has a more a pleasing palette of colors, metallic lacquer colors, so this being the purple. There's also, I think, a burgundy, a light blue, and like a champagne, I believe, color.
Fashionable colors.
Yeah, so they're, they shake it up with that, and, to kind of contrast with more of the formal, darker colors that are in the lineup of the standard Vanishing Points. In addition to the dozen or so everyday styles of the Vanishing Point, each year Pilot treats collectors to a yearly limited edition style. Since 2004, Pilot releases a special edition with an edition number that matches the year. This year, for example, we'll see a new limited edition, not sure what it'll look like yet, that will be limited to 2,022 pieces. 2,022 pieces isn't really a large number for a company as big as Pilot, so these pens tend to vanish quickly. Yet, if you own a pen store, you might have a great connection to collect as many Vanishing Points as you'd like. So that's what our bosses did. Sal would like to then show you some of his favorite Vanishing Points that he's collected over the years.
I'm ashamed to say, it's not as big a collection as one would expect. Kieran has a whole other thing going on with pens, but I tend to be finicky and picky with what I have. And other than a few Retro 51s, Vanishing Points are my go-to pen. So over the past few years, I've kept a few aside, not necessarily one of each, but every once in a while a pen passes through and I have to have that one. Mm-hmm. So I basically put together a little palette of colors. Some actually have been given to me by friends and sometimes customers, and others we've actually made a point to get sometimes from Japan. So we'll go through a little list, and none of them are labeled, so I'll let Tom, actually they are labeled.
Yeah, there are labels on them.
I'll let Tom do a little unboxing, and we can do a little reveal.
So this one we have is 2015.
That's a 2015.
I think this is when, I know that this is when Kieran's fascination with the Vanishing Point really, I think, kicked in, and it had to do a lot with the color. So
now she's, I'm not sure if she's done a video on this, but she's a big fan of the purples and the blues. So you can almost guarantee it'll be either one of those or both of those, actually.
So this is the Twilight from 2015. It is an ombre pattern that goes from a deep violet to an icy turquoise blue with rhodium trim. And this is the type of box that you would expect the modern limited edition Vanishing Points to be included in. I think they started doing this right around that same time, if not maybe a few years prior.
They do this
where it's the
accent
square.
that matches the
yeah, they got the accent part that matches the pen design. A little bit of a foam topper that's here, and the pen sits on a pretty nice bed that's here. So yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite Vanishing Points to be introduced in the limited edition line. And
a little disclaimer for anyone that's confused about why it's kind of sitting there falling apart. I do use my pens, so by no means is going to be sitting there on a shelf. Every once in a while, either Kieran will ink them or I'll ink them, and keep them.
But like keeping the boxes just for collectability purposes.
Basically, yeah. Or just for storage. Easier to store in the box than on a shelf.
I tend to keep my boxes as well because you could always package it together if somebody wants it.
Yeah.
They could have it with the original box, and that tends to maintain its value a lot more.
This one's quite popular actually. So this is the 2018 Cross Lines. Not quite as eloquent or fancy as the other ones, but yet, quite unique.
So this one's still in the
still
little baggie.
Yeah. I don't think we've inked this one yet.
But this is the Cross Lines. So it's just a black lacquer with striped lines that go in a perpendicular pattern.
This was kind of different for a Vanishing Point. I don't think they ever did anything like this prior to the Cross Lines, right?
There's been Pilot pens that were very formal looking with either the black was the guilloche or the black links, which I think you might also have over there.
Yep.
But in terms of lacquering it with a pattern, I don't think that any other Vanishing Point was patterned like this, where it was actually a contrasting layered look. So this definitely is unique, and I kind of feel very fashion forward.
It is.
Yeah, it kind of seems, but it seems like European style fashion, not typical American.
They started doing a lot of this stuff after the Decimos came out. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, they were always either monotone or sometimes a satin finish, and generally, a little more toned down, kind of laid back looks. And then after the Decimo, all this fancy stuff started coming around.
Yeah, not my favorite, but that's okay.
Yeah, probably agree with that.
I prefer the more bold, colorful type of things. When it comes down to seeing something like this, I'm kind of nah. Not when you compare it against something like the Twilight or the Crimson Sunrise. It's just,
for what it's worth, it wasn't my decision to add that to the collection, but
as at a certain point, does it become you're just, because of the fact that you have so many of them, that you're just well, now I have to, because I can't break the chain.
Exactly.
I have to keep going with it.
It's all pressure, right? Moving on to the 2019 Tropical Turquoise.
This was
another
really
one of Kieran's favorite.
Yeah, this one has got a really cool.
This one was very popular.
Aqua finish.
Yeah.
This one I think was one of our best top 5 pens because it just kept appearing on the list month after month. It just was it was
unique.
It wasn't an instant sellout, but it just continued to be so popular that every month it just kept appearing on the list in some form or another, whether it was number 5 or number 3 or number 1. It just was a very, very popular pen, and
I think it's the closest that the Vanishing Point ever made to a resin style look. Mm-hmm. That's probably one reason for it.
Yeah, and it's just such a nice color. The marbling is very pleasing to the eye. It's organic looking. It has a kind of a vintage vibe because of that marbling as well.
Yeah.
And then the rhodium trim is very striking on it, nice contrast. You can only get them in medium point. However, we've done it many times in the past, depending upon the volume and the level of requests that we get. But we have, because of the fact that we do sell the replacement nib units, we do tend to honor requests for if somebody wants a broad, extra fine stub, whatever that we can possibly do that's available. But especially with the issues that Pilot's been having with their inventory, haven't been able to really do that much in terms of being able to honor those switches, but we'll do it when we can. because it's only available in medium point for these limited editions at least.
Let's see if we can go in numerical order or chronological order.
I think we jumped out of that already. So
let's take a look at it. 2017, the Crimson Sunrise, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Crimson Sunrise is the follow-up to the Twilight. So instead of the purple and turquoise color pattern for the ombre design, you have kind of like almost like a bright, like orange
to red,
to a kind of like a burgundy or a light burgundy red, or kind of a little bit of a magenta or plumish sort of color as well. But yeah, this is another very striking pen, another very popular edition.
Yeah.
That just was fantastic, and I think this one pretty much flew off the shelves.
This was literally in and out. I don't think we had as many to begin with.
On these, it's more noticeable when it comes to when it says Pilot Limited Edition Japan, and then they also engrave the number on the metal ring that's here too. But on the gradient finishes, I kind of feel that you could actually see that imprint a bit more boldly. The ombres are always so nice. That's why we went with doing the retro ombres. Is that we just like
I think that was an inspiration,
cool style,
because we started doing that right around the time when these started coming out. It is definitely a cool style because it adds a little excitement to it. It's not just one flat color. There's a 2020. That's the Link Black. A lot of people are complaining about all the different blacks coming out from Vanishing Point. I don't know if you remember that until a couple of years ago. I think this was part of that series when we used to get a notification or email saying, oh, guess what the new color of the year is? Oh, it's another black.
Well, here's the thing too, is that with the black, you already have a stealth black.
Yep.
That's been produced in the standard line for years and years. And it's a very popular design. People love the matte stealth black. But then to be able to call this a limited edition where it just takes like the black parts and then has the barrel be in like a guilloche pattern, like it's textural. So it does like add that additional element of like, ooh, wow, like tactile feel is really cool. And then the pattern itself is mesmerizing, especially as you're turning in the light. It kind of has that really cool effect. But in terms of like wow factor, is it going to be like that pen that just really jumps out at you? Like, it's like, oh man.
Does it deserve to be a limited edition?
Oh, I still think it does. But it's not as like overwhelming as like some of the other colorful ones are. Like this is definitely more sophisticated and demure in its appearance than the other limited editions are.
The feel is a big one because they don't usually do that. It's rare. So that was like the big attraction towards it, is that little tactile feel that you get.
Yeah, and that's great for people who like want pens that are much more tactile in their feel, like wants a little bit more grip. Because sometimes, especially with your lacquers, and since it's like such a thin section at the top and you have the nose cone that's there, especially if you have like the hand sweats, you might have an issue where it like starts to slide towards the nib.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like this, where it's got the matted section, then the barrel itself has got that grip on it, that this is going to be a great pen that even if you do have like very oily hands or sweaty hands, that like you're not going anywhere on it. It's just going to be able to maintain that grip.
Which, by the way, is another cool feature of the Vanishing Point, is that clip in between the fingers. I find that kind of a cool, different feel for a fountain pen, and really for some people, right, they hold their pens upside down and they hold in weird ways. It kind of forces you to hold it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't like the clip for sure, but
I think it's cool. I think
it does orient yourself in a certain way that you can't. It's like kind of like the Safari. Some people don't like the Safari's triangular grip because it just is like it's not right for their hands. But when it comes to like forcing people to write with it that certain way to maintain that consistent experience, that's what really it's for. It really does enable you to like just have to hold the pen that one way.
Let's see what we have next. We've got, guess what? A 2021 Black Ice.
Black Ice.
As I was saying.
Yeah, so Black Ice continues the
So
theme.
it was, I think that was the third year in a row that they did a black. Was that right? Or did they have a break in the middle? Because it was the cross lines.
There was cross lines, then there was 2018 was cross lines, 2019 was tropical turquoise.
Okay, so there was a break.
Then you had the 2020 was the black links, right?
Black Links 2020.
2020.
Yes.
So then 2021 comes in with the black ice.
Right. Which is not quite black, but half black.
Yeah, so this gradients from a deep black to a metallic blue. Very similar to, if you remember the set of metallic vanishing points they did a few years ago. I feel like this is a dead on, I can't prove it because we don't have them anymore, but like I feel like this is a dead on the same exact blue that they did those pens out of, which I just feel like then they just basically took that pen and just dipped this part color. And then just made it like black.
I would have probably called that something like dusk or something of that sort, because it almost looks like a blue sky turning into dusk.
Or you could call it like black and blue.
Well, that sounds a little violent.
In terms of its popularity, I think it was certainly more popular, I feel, than Black Lynx was, but not nearly as much. So I kind of feel like the ombre stuff is kind of waning a little bit. But I think they have to make it more like wild and interesting. And I know you have an ombre that beats this ombre.
A couple more, actually. I think this is the one you're referring to.
Yeah, because for those who don't know,
one's not ombre, actually.
There are Pilot Vanishing Points that exist outside of the U.S. That are not available to the U.S. market, of which that's what Sal was referring to, that you might be able to get your hands on if you have some connections available to you. So
part of the fun is finding these, and then, I mean, obviously you can go to eBay and just get your hands on one, right? But that's not fun.
No. Especially you might be paying
the fact that you pay
too.
triple or more for each pen. This one is quite recent, I believe. This was the one that was bought from Japan again.
So this is actually a Decimo style. This is the thinner Decimo, and this has got some ombre pattern on it.
This is an FM nib.
Yeah, this is really cool. It goes from like a really beautiful, almost like a Konpeki type blue, and then goes right into an aqua green color. That is really, really neat. But so the story on this pen though is that this is a Japanese exclusive, exclusive to a retailer in Japan.
There's a few of them that are.
How did you come by this? This is from Pen
I think
Style,
Kieran saw this.
right?
Yes, Kieran saw this on Instagram and then found somebody that had one and got her hands on one.
Nice.
I think it took about 2 months to come in, but I think she forgot actually that she committed to one until the person emailed and said, "I'm shipping it to you this week."
Yeah, so this is fascinating too. Is that this is not only it's an 18 karat gold nib, but it's got it's an FM.
It's an FM,
which is something that we sometimes see on the Emperors. Sometimes we'll have FMs, like they'll be fine medium, and then on top of that, it's got engraving of a kind of a key that's on here, which is different too. So this is really, really cool. I wish they would have these available, or that they would work on with us.
Well, we've had this talk with Pilot so many times and saying, how come we don't get the cool exclusives in the U.S. And they claim that's not a decision that's up to them. That
Pilot Japan
decides that, and most of the cool stuff sometimes stays in Japan and doesn't even come out to Europe. So
that's a shame because I mean we have some good ideas. We have some good ideas that we could put forth in a Vanishing Point for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what else we have.
All right, so this one comes like a little back. Ooh,
you know this one.
This is nice. Yeah, so this is another ombre style that goes from.
It's actually 3 colors.
Yeah, so it's got like white, deep blue, and then kind of like a mango.
Like a mustard and mango.
Or mustard, mustard sort of color.
I forgot what they call this one. It has a quirky name too.
This one has
There's no label.
It has a symbol on it. I'm guessing this must be for the retailer that it comes from, but I'm not 100%
it's possible.
Sure.
I don't know. I think this is one of the ones that a customer gave us
Okay.
quite recently, and I'm actually trying to get a hold of him to see if he'll come in. He has quite a collection.
So this has got the cartridge cap on the back end, but it's got an empty cartridge inside there. And as far as I know, I think that the Japanese Vanishing Points tend to just be, they just include the cartridge, that this is kind of, that the converter is more of like an American thing.
There's
like
a cartridge shoved in there, I think.
The US, like wanting to fill by bottled ink is more of a, oh no, it does come with a converter.
Yeah.
So it comes with a Con 40 converter. As the primary option, they just include an empty cartridge in here. So, which I guess you could then fill this up with bottled ink if you please, and get your pen writing right away. But this is a really nice one. I'll say maybe I'm kind of more partial to the other, the more tropical.
Yeah, I mean the color.
This is really unique.
The color combo is not my favorite. Well, it goes well, but probably not my cup of tea. Again, people are wondering why is it in your collection. It's because I'm not the sole this decision maker on adding pens to that collection. But
well, it's kind of like gravity. It's like once you start building the collection, it just becomes natural that, especially if you talk about it,
like you said,
that other people are like, oh, I got you this one for like a special occasion or whatever. It just starts to naturally attract other Vanishing Points.
People, it's like, sometimes you find one that's like, oh, that's not my favorite, but it is unique, so yeah, I'll take it.
So this one I know this is actually, I think, one of the first limited editions that
this is. This, from what I know, is quite hard to find, and again, a gift from someone that knows I like orange. Am I wearing orange here? I am wearing my orange shirt. Here we go.
You have an orange t-shirt.
One of my favorite colors.
So this one is the 2007 limited edition.
They weren't doing the ombres at that time.
No, they were doing. I think at that point it was the solid, lacquers. This has got kind of like a little bit of a pearlescence to this lacquer as well. The nice gleaming rhodium trims on it. This is a really nice piece. Probably
what I like about it is the box that comes with it. It's quite unique, and it's got little navy blue inlays. And
if I remember correctly, I do remember when we first started getting into limited edition game with Pilot, that I think one of the first limited editions that we sold on Goldspot did come in a box that was similar to this. So maybe it was like a few years afterward.
Don't know if there were matching colors with the pens at that time. I do remember seeing like a black or dark gray version of this box.
That's nice. So that is very nice. The Vanishing Points are very collectible in that, like, they've been doing this for such a long time, so that if somebody does get into them, it becomes very lucrative then to go back in the past and then get one of the 2,000 pieces that they made of a particular color, especially when they weren't they weren't as popular as they are today. You don't have as many people collecting them, before.
I know a lot of people actually that get their hands on these, limited editions and whatnot, and they carry them around every day. They use them. And I've seen them. I actually happen to have seen this one with somebody that's in in quite used condition actually. And then lastly, this is our most recent one, which I'm going to let you open. 2021.
This has got too much
2022
beautiful paper on here for me to
unwrap. It has some.
I don't
this is
want
how
to
it came, believe it or not.
I'm going to end up destroying that thing.
So I've only opened this once or twice. I want to learn how they gift wrap this thing, because
I want to learn how to gift wrap.
This is really cool. Like, this is not your
wrapping.
typical gift wrapping.
Yeah, like I know this would never happen with me. Like, you would get this
like all of these folds,
ball of paper.
Yeah. Let's take this out of the way, and I'm gonna let you unbox.
Now this I could do. I could just slide something out of a sleeve.
Is cool.
Now watch I tear this apart by accident. As you may know, the Vanishing Point is called capless everywhere else but the US. So it's got capless in a debossed gold foil. It's got a 2-part box, dark green, light green. So we could only assume that the pen inside is also green. So we got some paraphernalia that's on top here, have a little cardboard, and boom, you have the capless bamboo forest. This thing is, this thing puts the tropical one on notice right here. 'Cause this is like, this is real nice. Because
I think this is a pretty unique thing, even because it starts off with the same color, and then goes into the darker forest green, and then goes back to the
same color. and then they trimmed it in gold. I mean,
Which
like,
is cool, yeah.
Something completely different. Because usually you would see like the ombres, they usually either put like the black or the silver trim on it, but this with the gold, and I think it really works well with this bamboo forest color. And then you have here 3 15 ml bottles of Pilot Shizuku ink that match the theme pretty well. It's like I think you could put any of these inks in the pen, and I think it would go really well with this pen. So all in all, extremely well executed. This was also a Japanese.
This was a Japanese
pen.
exclusive, yeah. This has a funny story behind it because again we saw it come out, and then I had shared the link with a friend of mine who used to know a lot of people in Japan. He asked me, "Hey, do you want one?" And I said, "But you don't live in Japan anymore." He said, "Yeah, but I know a lot of people there." So literally within a half hour, he texted me back, somebody found one for you. It was the last one in the store.
Nice.
And they'll buy it and ship it to you.
Nice. This is a beauty to pick up. This for sure, definitely. I think though they really need to listen to us though. They need to.
They do. I mean, just imagine if they had these available in the U.S. market.
Like if we could run like, let's say even like 300 pens or something in a limited style.
Absolutely.
I think that people go crazy for them.
And it is not so much that, sometimes their feeling might be that, oh, we're making so many of these, it might take away from the exclusivity, from the limited edition factor. But I think that there's enough people looking for these to cherish that this would, just make it all that more valuable.
Absolutely. I think that there's also an unlimited palette available. Like, I mean, just like with Retro 51, it's just like they've basically said, we're going to take this very simple design, ballpoint pen, rollerball pen, and then make it in as many different styles as we could possibly think of. And the imagination is the limit. I think you could do that with the Vanishing Point.
I feel that to keep the excitement going for a brand, you have to keep doing that. Just look at cars. They always come out with these quirky, top-end designs in yellows and oranges and weird colors that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but it keeps that brand noticeable for years to come. And I think that's important for Pilot to recognize that and keep putting those out in the U.S.
You throw in features like self-driving and parking assist. So like if you have a pen, maybe it writes for you. It just starts dancing on the paper. You just hit a button and it just starts going, by itself. That would be pretty cool. A couple of quick questions. Which out of all these pens would you never sell, would you think?
Probably the Bamboo Forest and the Orange.
So the new one, the
latest
Bamboo
one,
Forest,
which was actually my decision, and the Orange, which was a very cherished gift.
And the Orange
from someone, being the fact that orange is my favorite color. I think those two.
So the sentimentality of the Orange being that it was a special gift. The Bamboo Forest is kind of like your flavor, your current flavor that you like.
That's my flavor that I like, just because it just, it's different. It's cool. It's a subtle color. It's not very loud. And
so then for 2022, what style would we want? Like, what style would you want to see in 2022?
Certainly not black. I can tell you that. But I think like a burgundy ombre or something like that would be cool.
So something along the lines of like Crimson Sunrise, but maybe like a different...
A little subtle, a little more, a little darker, I would think. Like a dark burgundy.
I'm going to go with the obvious answer because I had a chance to think about this a little bit. And so that's why I'm saying I might have an advantage on you here. But like, I think there needs to be a demonstrator version.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But then material, do you think that Vanishing Point or Capitalist will ever do anything other than metal?
Right, so it's a metal base, but maybe figuring some way to maybe if it was like a little bit half and half, almost like a skeleton, where like you could see through parts of it. You could have like some parts of the metal shell
would be cool.
just for structure purposes, and then you could have maybe you could just have like a window into like the mechanical function of it. You could see like the spring tensioning and like the door opening in the front and everything like that. I would love to know what everybody thinks out there on YouTube, on the internet, and whatever. What style would you guys like to see for 2022 for the Pilot Limited Edition? I even was thinking of like celluloid, even though I know that would jack up the price to like some unheard, like it would probably be like $1,000 for a Vanishing Point. But I mean, everything's on the table. Just use your imagination and come up with what you think the 2022 limited edition should look like, and let us know in the comments below. So thank you, Sal, for sharing this gorgeous collection of Pilot Vanishing Point fountain pens. You could find all current Pilot Vanishing Point pens, replacement nibs, and refills on the Goldspot Pens website. Sign up for the email newsletter using the link in the description below so you can be notified when this year's limited edition pen drops. So I don't want to block Sal's face with the various clickable graphic areas here.
I can peek through.
So I'll just say you could subscribe to the Goldspot Pens YouTube channel for more how-to pen videos, reviews, and unboxings. Thank you guys for watching, and stay inky, my friends. Take care.
Thank you.